Hi, my name is Joseph Alai. Welcome to my channel. And today we're going to talk about an incredibly important topic. This is a warning video related to a popular technique circulating around TikTok and other platforms. And this is regarding the not technique, which is something you should not be doing. It is a radical misinterpretation of Neville Goddard's teachings, which if you are attempting to manifest your desires, the best place to start with Neville Goddard's teachings are through his videos. So the not technique is a failure at an attempt to interpret Neville Goddard's teachings and Neville Goddard's experiment called the ladder experiment. And so by the end of this video, I'm going to explain to you why you should not use this, what to do if you have used it to make sure that you don't completely sabotage your manifestation, what to kind of look for when you are listening to teachers talk about manifestation techniques, especially related to Neville Goddard, and ultimately what manifesting is, because knowing the source of what manifesting is will really help you to be able to debunk these sort of errors in teaching. So stay tuned till the end of this video. You'll learn a lot about this. So also ensure then with the like button, hit the like button. It does something to the algorithm so that those who wouldn't normally be able to see this will be able to see this video. It's really helpful to me. That's what helps me the most. Also the subscribe button to stay in the know for broken down systematic techniques on how to manifest whatever you want in a predictable, no nonsense way. I've been systematically experimenting with manifestation. I've been keeping track since 2011 on my manifestation experiments, prayers, such as things like this, but most importantly, detailed analyses on what happens after with what I have done, what I have read, what I have imagined, how many times I've imagined, what has happened as a result of imagining, how it unfolds, did it go to the end, what was my thought process during. And so my channel is essentially 13, 14 years of obsessive experimentation and observation on not only tens of thousands of experiments of my own, but also my viewers, my coaching clients, and those who I interact with on a regular basis whilst on this journey. So hit the bell icon if you like to stay in the know. You will get notified for my premieres, which you can chat with me live on Tuesdays and Fridays, generally around 10 p.m. England time, London time. And that's 2 p.m. Pacific time, and that's 5 p.m. Eastern time. So anyway, let us talk about this not technique. So what is the not technique? First, I think I should explain very briefly about the ladder technique, which is what the not technique failed to interpret. So the ladder experiment is an experiment that Neville Goddard gave to his audiences. So he cites it a few different times during the breadth of his lectures. Now, I have obsessively studied his lectures from the beginning of his career to his end of his career. And there are some changes in his teachings from the beginning to the end, but towards the beginning of his career as a lecturer, he gave an experiment to people, and he said, at night you are supposed to imagine that you are climbing a ladder. It's very critical you do that. But during the day, you are supposed to say, I will not climb a ladder. I will not climb a ladder. And then he told people, for those of you who climb a ladder can attend next meeting. For those of you who have not, fare thee well. So essentially, later, what happened is the next time he had a meeting, people would show up and they said, I climbed a ladder. So the misinterpretation here that I have heard, I do believe I heard the source as well, which I'm not going to cite the original video because it was a misinterpretation. But what I will say is the misinterpretation was this individual who was essentially probably a beginner with Neville's teachings, had thought that it was citing the negative context of the desire that caused it to manifest, because in Feeling is the Secret, Neville says that the subconscious is non-selective, meaning it does not observe the negative. So if you say something, it's essentially the analogy that's always used. If I tell someone, don't think about a pink elephant. What are you thinking about? A pink elephant. And so therefore it will still create the pink elephant, even if you are suggesting that you're not supposed to be thinking about it or you don't want to create it. So this sounds okay from the beginning, but essentially the problem with it is that's not what was intended. What Neville's entire breadth of teachings describes is that imagination creates reality, but he specifically explains the latter exercise, which says that when you imagine something at night, there's nothing you can do to stop it from happening with your waking thoughts. So in other words, your visualizations before bed take precedence over everything. In all of his lectures, and also you can systematically test this yourself by performing these experiments, that so long as you visualize at night, there's nothing you can do to prevent that manifestation from coming. And so it's the proof that visualization trumps walking thought, living during the day, living and acting in the end, essentially. So, but with that said, so the misinterpretation is dangerous because later in Neville's career, and also you can observe this on my channel through the experimentations that I provide with the list method specifically, that words create. So Neville also changes, or more or less, everyone is learning, right? Even throughout my career as a manifestation practitioner and teacher, doing this for a long time, you realize a lot of things. Even in the beginning, taking Neville's word as law, but then ultimately realizing that he himself changes what he teaches throughout the breadth of his career. So I initially took what he said, I'm talking about way back when, initially took what he said in one lecture as this must be true because what other things he said is true, which is a common way of thinking, but it is a fallacy. That is a fallacy way of thinking. So the list method, which I will talk about very briefly so that you can prove what I'm talking about, can actually tell you and show you that you can create by using just words. And not only that, by citing that you want something to not happen, you can actually create that. So in other words, the first misinterpretation is the concept that it's the phrasing itself. The saying of, I will not be with this person. I will not manifest this thing. I will not be rich. I will not do this. It is a failure to interpret properly the breadth of his teachings, that it is the visualization faculty before bed that supersedes, that's an important phrase, it supersedes your other actions, right? There is a verse in scripture, which is where Neville himself gets his information from, that says, whatever you pray or whatever you desire, you enter into the closet and shut the door and pray to your Father in secret. And the Father who hears you in secret shall reward you openly. This is the way to imagine. Whilst at night, closing your eyes and visualizing the thing that you want fulfills that verse. And then whatever is seen to your Father in secret, which is your consciousness that's aware of your imaginal acts, will push it out into time-space. So in other words, what you are doing during the day, such as repeating a phrase, is less effective than the thing that you're doing at night. This is through scripture. This is what Neville is talking about. There's another verse that says, it's in Song of Solomon 3, I believe. Don't quote me on chapter 3, but it says to the effect, I found who that my soul loveth, and I would not let it go. And I held on to it and brought it into the chamber of her that conceived me, which essentially, again, is another way to describe imagining whilst falling asleep, is the core to creating. So now we have two verses, and Neville quotes all of these, that describe that imagining before bed is the key to creation. However, there is also verses that say, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And the Word became flesh and dwelt within us. words become flesh. Now, words is the word logos, which is essentially meaning, M-E-A-N-I-N-G. And that means each and every word has a meaning. It doesn't just negate it, right? If you focus on a visual and imagine something that you want and cite internally with your words that you don't have it, you are likely to supersede the words with the imaginal act. However, this is the way to prove that your words without imagining can also create, which is why it is critical to not use the not technique. What you do is, every day, this is critical that you listen step by step. This works for anyone who does it if you complete it. This blows manifestation wide open. It debunks probably 95% of the coaches and teachers out there who claim you have to do all this, that, and the other to manifest what you want. But the point is every single day, when you, upon awakening, or at this point now, I do it at any point throughout the day, is you sit down. Generally, this is what I do. But the point is you write down 10 things, at least 10 things from the perspective of it already being done. Now, you could write down not this, or I am this, I am rich. Really, the key is to prove that manifestation works with words. So choose things that are easy in your mind to manifest. I received a free cup of coffee. Someone told me that I'm funny. I found money on the ground. An old friend messaged me. It rained for 5 minutes. And what you do is stream of consciousness. It's very important that you aren't stopping to visualize or imagine or feel these things. There's a very particular reason for this, because what will happen is you do this every day. Do not deliberately, first of all, don't reflect back on what you wrote the day before. So each day you write 10 or so things. I would use an individual journal for this in and of itself. Make sure you hand write. This is critical, again, for this purpose of this experiment. And then you write 10 or more things for that day. You close it down. Make sure you're focused at the time on just writing it down. And then after you do that, you close it and you carry on. The next day, you do the same thing. Now, the tense that you write it is after the end always, such as I received, I found, someone did this, someone told me this. So keep in mind, I'm not saying today. That's not the point of this. That's contrary to this. That's a different experiment altogether to prove that time means nothing. But nevertheless, you do that for at least 7 days. Once you hit day 8, you can then reflect back on day 1. So the point is once you hit a week past, then you can reflect back and observe of what happened. And what you will find is throughout, usually in the beginning, you will find some people get few results the first week, but as you continue on day by day, they begin to everything will manifest. And in fact, it's generally when you stop thinking about it is when it creates. So if you did this for, say, a month, you would likely have more experience than 99% of the people alive, just by simply observing what's happened as a result of you writing these things down. But what you will experience is without visualizing it, without feeling it, only with your words. Because now think for a second of what's happening when you're writing something down. You're just using words. You're slowly writing it down. You're perhaps reading it back to yourself in your mind. You're reading it. It's hand-eye coordination. So what it's essentially doing is clearing your mind of everything else and meticulously focus slowly on one sentence. Those will create. In fact, eventually every single one of those things that you write down without visualizing, without feeling it, any of that stuff will create. And what this proves is that your imagination is not just what's visual. Your imagination also counts as your inner voice alone, without feeling, without anything. And so ultimately, you can find also by writing down negative statements, such as I'm not this, or this person stopped doing this, those will happen as well. And this is the key to why the not technique is critical to not do. when I made a short recently and posted a warning for people to stop using it, the feedback I got was insane. People had been saying they were on the bridge, then started using that technique, and it stopped altogether. The people vanished. Their manifestation ceased to exist, which is exactly what I would have expected. So the point of the matter is your imagination is not just visual. Your imagination, your subconscious can work just with words, right? You are a very powerful individual. And so do not just take this for granted and take what people say. If you want to verify what someone is saying, I'm understanding that the majority of people are not going to sit and read a Neville lecture. You are trusting the individual coach who is giving you this information. And I understand that. The problem, though, is when they themselves are not reading the lectures, or they do not have the understanding throughout the breadth of years of experience to make the connections to realize that what they're saying just is not true. So point being is, do not use the not method. Now, what does that mean though? It does mean that it is possible. So if you're, for instance, if you are internally reciting this, I am not this, or I will not get this, but on the contrary, you're equally visualizing having it, there's a chance that one of those will supersede the other, and you will not negate and destroy your manifestation from all progress, and that the visualization will happen. This is why, in rare cases, people will get results. But if they are doing it right and only using the words, then it will not work. You will oppose your manifestation. You will impress the opposite. So what do you do if you have done this technique, and how do you fix it? The key is stop doing it immediately. Share this video, spread this video around. But the point is start just imagining the end. Imagine the end, right? It's not, there's no way to say that you have completely broken something. What you would do is entirely cease to use that technique ever again and persist with the imaginal act of the end, after the end, right? That in and of itself is sufficient for you to get your desire. So anyway, I hope this was helpful. Be sure to hit the like button. Please download the workbook if you like supplementary breakdown material on manifesting what you want. That will get you on my email list. And I do release content standalone that is nowhere else except for that email list. And besides that, hit the subscribe button if you like these broken down methods, and hit the bell icon to stay tuned for Tuesdays and Fridays. My videos are released and I do live premieres. So I will see you next time. Thank you so much.